The hum of the ship's engines was a constant, dull pulse beneath the sterile white lights of the prison transport. Captain Yarrick Dune sat alone in his cold cell, the faint clang of his shackles the only other sound. Beyond the thick blast doors, thousands of kilometers away, a war was raging. A war that had already claimed billions of lives. Yarrick was not like the others. Most prisoners on this transport were soldiers or spies caught in the tangled politics of the galactic war. But Yarrick was different, a human, and an anomaly in a universe dominated by towering, multi-limbed Zelnari, the fierce and relentless rulers of the known systems. To the Zelnari, humans were weak, a primitive species barely worthy of notice. But they had underestimated him. The small knife strapped to Yarrick's ankle was old, an archaic relic from Earth, a blade sharpened through decades of survival in brutal conditions. It was simple, silent, and deadly, and it was the last thing the Zelnari wanted him to have. The ship jolted suddenly, alarms blaring in the corridor outside. The transport lurched as if struck. Through the small viewport, Yarrick caught a glimpse of flickering red lights and smoke curling from the engines. The voice of the ship's AI echoed coldly in the cell. Emergency lockdown initiated. External attack detected. Unknown vessel engaging. Yarrick's eyes narrowed. An attack? On a prison ship? No one was supposed to find them here. The Zelnari believed the ship's route secret, its cargo worthless except for him. Then the blaring intensified. The ship was underboarding. The thick doors protecting Yarrick's cell began to slide open with a hiss. Shadows spilled into the corridor, Zelnari soldiers, armed with plasma rifles, their 6 limbs moving with lethal precision. But this was no rescue party. They were here to kill, not to free. Yarrick tensed, feeling the old familiar rush of adrenaline flood through his veins. His mind raced back to all he had learned during his years in exile, fighting with nothing but grit and that knife against threats far deadlier than these. The door slid fully open. A dozen soldiers surged forward, and Yarrick moved like a flash of wind. His blade caught the first attacker by surprise, a quick slice that severed a vital tendon in the creature's limb. The Zelnari screamed in rage and pain, firing wildly. Yarrick ducked and rolled, the narrow cell working against the soldier's bulk. His knife flicked, cutting through wires, tendons, and armor plates. Each movement was precise, economical, the product of years where every second counted. But more came. The corridor beyond the cell was flooding with troops, and Yarrick knew he had little time before he was overwhelmed. Then a sudden explosion rocked the ship. The lights flickered and dimmed, and a deep rumble shook the metal walls. Containment breach in Deck 7, the AI warned. Structural integrity failing. The ship was dying. Yarrick's thoughts surged. This chaos was his chance. If he could escape the transport, find the attackers, and learn why they wanted him dead, he could turn the tide. Not just for himself, but for humanity. A flash of movement caught his eye. A small panel near the cell door, blinking red. Without hesitation, Yarrick lunged, slashing at the control console. Sparks flew as the locks disengaged. The door slid open wider. Beyond the cell lay a corridor filled with smoke and shadows, but also hope. Yarrick stepped into the corridor, knife in hand, and vanished into the chaos. Yarrick moved through the dim, smoke-choked corridors of the prison ship like a ghost. His breathing was steady, controlled, but his mind raced. The AI's announcements rang in his ears: containment breach, structural failure, hull pressure dropping. The ship was dying, and with it, his last chance to escape. But escape to where? The boarding attackers weren't here to rescue him. Whoever they were, they wanted him dead. Yarrick's instincts screamed danger, yet there was something else, a strange pattern in the chaos. The way the Zelnari soldiers moved, their hesitation despite the overwhelming numbers. It was as if some unseen hand was pulling strings from the shadows. He ducked behind a twisted bulkhead, watching as 2 heavily armed figures passed by, their armor marked with a symbol unfamiliar to him, a silver star eclipsed by a black sun. New players in this galactic war. Yarrick tightened his grip on his knife and slipped past them, silent as the void. He had to find the ship's bridge. If he could seize control, maybe reroute the ship, maybe send a warning to Earth or to any human out there. As he rounded a corner, a sudden movement caught his eye. A small, frail figure huddled against the wall, a prisoner, human like him, but barely alive, her eyes wide with terror. "You're not like them," she whispered, voice cracking. "They're not just Zelnari soldiers. They're hunters. They want to wipe us out, all humans." Jarek's heart thudded harder. Humans were already a dying breed in this galaxy, scattered and hunted. But hunters? What had he stumbled into? She handed him a small data chip, trembling. "This, it's proof. They're planning a genocide, starting here. You have to stop it." Before Yarek could ask more, the corridor exploded with light, plasma fire blazing through the smoke. The hunters were close. He shoved the chip into his pocket, grabbed the woman's arm, and pulled her to her feet. "Stay close. I don't know if we'll both make it out alive." They ran, weaving through collapsing halls, past screams and flashes of blue energy. The ship's AI was going silent now, overwhelmed by the damage. At last, they reached the command deck, a shattered room with blinking consoles and flickering holograms. Yarek slammed his fist down on the main control panel. "Help me get this ship back online." The woman nodded weakly, pulling out a worn datapad. "I'm Kira. I used to work here before they locked me up." Together, they hacked into the ship's failing systems. Sparks flew, and circuits hissed, but slowly, the engine stabilized. A sharp beep, a message incoming, scrambled but urgent. Jarek's eyes widened as he decrypted it. "To any survivor, humanity's last hope is in your hands. The hunters will stop at nothing. Trust no one." The ship shook violently. Outside, the hull breached, and the vacuum of space clawed inside. "We don't have much time," Kira gasped. "The hunters have a mothership nearby. They're going to finish this." Jarek's grip tightened on his knife. One human, one knife, 1,000,000 enemies. But he was ready. Yarek and Kira barely caught their breath before the ship's hull ruptured again, sending icy vacuum air rushing into the command deck. They sealed the blast door just in time, gasping as the emergency atmosphere filters hissed to life. "Hunter's mothership," Kira whispered, eyes scanning the damaged screens. "It's close, too close. They're hunting survivors, and we're the last ones they want." Jarek's mind flashed back to the data chip, the hidden genocide plan. Why target humans so ruthlessly? What threat did they pose? He clenched his jaw. In the vast galactic empire ruled by the Zelnari, humans were considered insignificant, scavengers at best. Yet here, against impossible odds, humanity was hunted like vermin. "Then we don't wait for them to come to us," Yarek said, voice low but fierce. "We go to them." Kira looked at him, disbelief and hope mixing in her eyes. "You're insane." "Maybe," he replied with a grim smile, "but sometimes insanity is the only way to survive." They patched into the ship's navigation system. The nearest star chart revealed a dark shadow drifting in a nearby asteroid field, the Hunter mothership, a massive alien fortress, bristling with weapons and cloaked in near invisibility. Jarek's fingers danced over the controls, plotting a course. The ship shuddered violently as they powered engines to full. Outside, tiny bursts of plasma fire lit the dark void, Hunter drones closing in fast. "Evasive maneuvers," Kira ordered, her former role as technician coming alive. Jarek's hands tightened on the controls. Every move mattered. One wrong step, and they'd be consumed by the Hunter swarm. As they weaved through dense asteroids, the ship's damage sensors picked up a distress beacon, faint but human. Another survivor, Kira breathed. Yarek hesitated. Help them and risk capture? Or push forward, focused on the mothership? "No choice," he said. "We save who we can." They diverted course. The beacon led them to a battered escape pod, drifting silently among the rocks. Yarek powered up the retrieval arm and pulled it inside. The pod door hissed open, revealing a lone figure, a young man, barely conscious, but alive. "Name?" Yarek demanded. "Rin," the man rasped. "They're everywhere. The hunters, they've been wiping out colonies." Yarek nodded. "One human," Now 3, a fragile but growing spark in a universe that wanted them snuffed out. As they secured Rin, alarms blared again. Hunter ships, multiple signatures, closing fast, the AI warned. Yarrick drew his knife from his belt, the cold steel gleaming in the dim light. This is it, he said. 1 human, 1 knife, 1,000,000 enemies. And yet, he felt a strange certainty. The fight was far from over. The moment they breached the Hunter mothership's outer perimeter, the lights aboard Yarrick's ship died. Total blackout. No power. No sensors. No weapons. Nothing. The alien fortress had some kind of suppression field, a dampening aura that didn't just jam electronics, it erased them. Yarrick stood in the silence of the dead cockpit, watching the enemy vessel slowly loom in the void like a mountain of black metal and bone. It pulsed unnaturally, like something alive, a leviathan in space. Its surface seemed to shift and breathe. Kira whispered, "That's not just a ship. It's part organism." Rin shuddered. "I've seen this tech before. Organic warforms, grown, not built. The Hunters don't manufacture weapons. They birth them." That explained the silence. The suppression wasn't jamming electronics. It was feeding on them. The trio suited up in silence. Yarrick, ever old-fashioned, wore a suit that relied on minimal tech, mostly analog systems and a hand-crank oxygen pump. No AI. No auto-targeting. Just grit and instinct. And the knife. Still sharp. Still deadly. They launched via a manually operated breach pod, a titanium coffin with thrusters, aimed directly at the mothership's underbelly. As they neared, the hull split open, not from damage, but as if the ship had sensed them and opened a maw to swallow them whole. They landed inside. The moment they stepped out, the entrance closed behind them. The interior was unlike anything Yarrick had ever seen. It was a cathedral of bone and metal, pulsing veins of liquid data running through the walls. The floor throbbed underfoot like muscle tissue. The air was breathable, but thick with the scent of decay and ozone. Kira muttered, "We're inside a living thing." "No," Rin said, gripping his sidearm, "we're inside a hive mind." Suddenly, lights flared ahead. Not electrical, but bioluminescent sacs lining the walls. From the shadows, Hunter drones emerged. Silent, 6-legged, gliding like nightmares. Yarrick stepped forward, unsheathing his knife. "Let me talk to them." Kira grabbed his arm. "Are you insane? They're not machines," he said. "They're designed to fear one thing. Us. The old us. The version of humanity they haven't seen in centuries." He walked forward. The Hunters halted, confused by his lack of fear. Then Yarrick attacked. He moved with precision, dodging blades, severing joints, stabbing through eye clusters. Every motion was economical brutal. The knife whispered through flesh and armor alike. One by one, the drones fell. Behind him, Kira and Rin watched in awe and horror. "Is he even human?" Rin muttered. "No," Kira whispered. "He's what humans used to be when we still fought with sticks and teeth and refused to die." Yarrick stood over the last twitching drone, breathing hard. His suit was torn. Blood, not all his own, stained the knife. Ahead, a vast door opened, revealing the core of the mothership. A chamber filled with stasis pods. Thousands of them. And inside, humans. Kira gasped. They weren't killing us. They were collecting us. Rin approached one of the pods, reading the alien interface. "They're studying us, dissecting us, breeding something." Suddenly, a voice filled the chamber. Not spoken, not heard, felt. "You are not supposed to be here. Your kind is extinct." Yarrick turned to the center of the room. The hive mind itself was rising from a pool of liquid data, a towering amalgam of flesh and circuitry, stitched together from dozens of alien species and human parts. Yarrick raised his knife. "No," he said. "We're just getting started." The chamber reeked of artificial decay. Biometallic tendrils pulsed in the walls, whispering with distant static like a heart murmuring through wires. Yarrick stood at the edge of the hive mind's lair, his boots slick with oil, blood, and something that didn't belong in either category. Above him, The hive mind unfolded. A monstrosity. Part starship, part organism, part human. Its body was built from stolen limbs. Its brain, a lattice of nerve fibers, fed by hundreds of harvested minds. At its center, set into a ribcage of bone and alloy, was a face. Human. Dissected. Preserved. Whispering. We studied you. We learned your weakness. You are chaos incarnate. Yarrick said nothing. He stepped forward, knife in hand. Kira's voice broke through behind him. Yarrick, the pods, there are thousands of them. They're not killing us. They're cataloging us. She stood over the closest stasis chamber, its glass fogged from the breath of a woman still alive inside. They've been collecting survivors from the fallen colonies, examining them, modifying them. Rin was pale, his hand trembling over his rifle. That's why no one ever escaped. The hunters weren't executing, they were harvesting. The hive mind's voice coiled in their skulls again, deep and cruel. You resist because you are flawed. Your unpredictability threatens universal balance. We will extract what makes you unstable. The error will be corrected. Yarrick looked up at the monster. You don't get it, he said. That error? That's why we win. Without warning, a section of the chamber wall peeled open. War forms stepped through, tall as cargo shuttles, all muscle and metal, eyes burning with violet light. They moved with mechanical grace, bred to kill with no hesitation. They outnumbered Yarrick 100-1. But Yarrick didn't move. He raised his knife and smiled. You built an army to crush a species that won't stay dead. Let me show you why that was your last mistake. The war forms attacked. Yarrick charged first. He ducked low, slashed the leg joint of the nearest beast, and pivoted, driving the blade into the exposed spine of a second. It shrieked, twisting unnaturally as it collapsed. He didn't stop. Every move was instinct, years of survival, loss, and fury compressed into raw action. The knife wasn't just a weapon, it was a memory of every colony raised, every friend lost, every time someone said humanity wouldn't make it. Behind him, Kira tore open the stasis pod controls. I can wake them, but not safely. If I screw up the sequencing, their brains could seize. They're already dying in there, Rin shouted, covering her with suppressive fire. Better a fighting chance than no chance. She nodded and slammed the override. All around them, stasis pods hissed open. Steam poured from the vents. One by one, people fell forward, groggy, confused, terrified. But awake. The hive mind surged forward. You pollute this chamber with error. You bring ruin. You end progress. Yarrick stabbed another war form through its throat, yanked his blade free, and shouted over his shoulder. Then maybe progress deserves to burn. Dozens of awakened humans stumbled to their feet. Some grabbed shards of metal. Others simply stood behind Yarrick, watching. And in their eyes, something ancient sparked. Defiance. Help them. Kira shouted. We need to get out before this thing resets its neural systems. No, Yarrick said, locking eyes with the hive mind. We're not running. Not this time. He looked up, spotted the glowing brainstem conduit overhead, where all the ship's data flowed in and out. He threw the knife. It struck clean. Deep. The conduit burst open, spewing liquid data and neuroelectric fire. The entire hive screeched, convulsing in the walls. Lights died. The chamber shook. Sparks flew. And for the first time in its existence, the hive mind screamed in fear. The hive mind was dying. The blade had pierced its neural spine, the one thing it hadn't armored, the one thing it believed no primitive could reach. Now the biomechanical god howled like a ruptured storm, limbs thrashing, circuits frying in twitching, fleshy bursts. And Yarrick Dune stood right beneath it. Steam hissed from the floor vents. Sparks rained from the ceiling. Dozens of once silent stasis pods now lay open, their occupants stumbling out, dazed and breathing freedom for the first time in years. Systems are destabilizing, Kira shouted from a side panel, hands flying over alien controls. The whole ship's going to come down on us. Not yet, Yarrick said, panting, his grip still tight on the blood-slick handle of his blade. Rin was at his side now, dragging one of the survivors to cover. Yarok, we've got people here who can't walk, let alone run. We need to evac. Yarok turned toward the ruined core. You said you could tap into the hive mind's broadcast net. Can you still do it? Kira hesitated. You want me to go live with this? Yes. His voice was hard. Final. Let them all see it. The hunters. The colonies. Everyone. Kira looked at him. Then at the monster above them, flickering, broken, and afraid. She nodded once. Okay, she whispered, and jammed her hand into the relay socket. The ship screamed again, not in pain this time, but in exposure. Across hunter space, signals once encrypted began to crack open. Screens flickered to life. Data feeds surged. Hive-linked minds suddenly twitched in unison as the forbidden image burned across their vision. A human, covered in blood, holding a knife, standing over a dying god. Yarok turned to face the hive mind one last time. Its once unshakable voice now trembled, fractured, no longer echoing with confidence. We were perfection. We brought order. You are ruin. Yarok stepped closer, lifting the knife again. No, he said. We're the reminder that order breaks. He drove the blade into the heart of the hive mind. There was no roar, no explosion, just a final, shuddering exhale. And then the whole world tilted. The hive ship began to collapse inward. A gravity well surged to life at the core, pulling twisted machinery and dying walls into a single glowing mass. Time to go, Rin yelled. The survivors poured toward the extraction tunnel Kira had unlocked, an escape pod chamber buried beneath the main floor. Yarok herded them through, blade still in hand, blood trailing behind him. The last pod closed as the ceiling began to cave in. Hours later, orbit over a dead moon. Yarok sat on the floor of the scorched escape pod, his head resting against the bulkhead. The survivors were quiet. Kira was checking vitals. Rin stared out the window at the massive burning wreckage in the stars. You did it, Kira said softly, sitting beside Yarok. You killed their god. No, Yarok muttered. I reminded them that gods can bleed. The comm crackled. A human voice came through. A real one. Unidentified vessel. This is Colony Freehold Echo. We picked up your broadcast. Is the hive really dead? Yarok reached up and toggled the comm manually. This is Yarok Dune, he said. We're survivors of Outpost Vega. We're coming in with wounded. And yes, the hive is dead. He paused. But the war? It's just started. He looked at the knife beside him, still glowing faintly with heat. Still stained. The broadcast that had gone out wouldn't just be seen by the hunters. It would be seen by humans. Everywhere. They'd know. One man. One blade. 1,000,000 enemies. And still he stood,